Okay, welcome everyone to the our design session today, which is Ekahau as part of a structured Wi-Fi design approach. And I got our special guest here is Frank. He is actually hails from the Netherlands today. And just before we get into that, just a little quick housekeeping today is that yes, our webinars are always posted online after on our YouTube page. So if you want to get over there and subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be alerted to any of the webinars that we do, and we post them there, usually about a couple days afterwards. And secondly, for questions and Q&A, we're going to try and get through some of those as we go along in the presentation, and we'll try to keep it open-ended. But we'll answer pretty much all the rest of them at the end of the show. I'm gonna pass the ball over to you, Frank, and take it away.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on the webinar tonight, that I'm a guest presenter. I'm very happy to be part of this webinar and to present tonight's webinar.
We are happy to have you, by the way.
Okay, great.
Yes, we are happy to have you.
Very good. So yeah, the title, as you mentioned, is how we can use Ekahau as part of a structured Wi-Fi design approach, because we have great tools, of course, from Ekahau, and especially over the last couple of years with all the products, especially I think the Sidekick was a game changer. So I'm very happy, and most of us, I think, are now using the Sidekick instead of survey adapters. But anyway, even if you have great tools, you still need to know how to use them, and especially the wireless fundamentals is very important, that you have at least some knowledge about wireless fundamentals, about channels, modulations, all that kind of stuff before you can use actually the tools. So I want to stress that out, and also how in a structured design process we can use the tools optimal and make use of all the features and functions. And next to that, of course, we had a webinar 2 weeks ago about the new version, and I've updated some of my slides to include also these great new features and how to use them. So I highlight some of them. There's much more to talk about than the time we have, but anyway, I picked the highlights from it, and we will see them during the slide deck. So normally people say, hey, a wireless, how hard can it be to not install wires? But yeah, it can be quite complex. Wireless in the old days, people mounted some APs and hoped for the best. And yeah, most of the time it even worked. And the reason for that was because at that time the number of clients was quite limited. The requirements for the wireless was also limited. The applications were not that demanding. So over the years, of course, we had an enormous increasing number of clients on the network. The applications are more demanding. So yeah, if you have not done a proper design, you will probably have a lot of issues. So this is far out the worst design, if you can call it a design. I don't think so, but what I've seen over the years is a simple drawing of an environment, and they say, if you move the APs a little bit to the right, then all your problems are solved. It's amazing.
I really like this design. I mean, this brings back memories when we didn't have tools. Like,
yeah, of course. But this was not
like insert plug here, Ekahau Pro, right? So this brings back memories for sure. I think what I think we just need to get in the solo cups. I think next. I think that's what we need there. Yeah.
And another thing, of course, even if you have tools like Ekahau and you say you only base your, you only look at the color of your screen, you say, oh, green, it's all good. And from, the perspective of the signal, the engineer who did this design probably thought he did a very good job because the signal could be excellent, but we still could have a lot of problems, of course. And probably this guy was very happy that this building had only 11 floors, so he could use a channel per floor. But anyway, of course, we know that this is not the way to do this, and channel reusage, code channel interference is an issue in networks. So we have to be aware of that. And without proper tools, it's hard to see this, and except for people complaining. And the common mistake is, of course, that they add more IPs to the network and then make it even worse. So you want to do that in another way. So the question is, of course, is green always good? The classical answer is it depends. As you can see with these bananas, I actually prefer the yellow ones, but if you see on the slide, green bananas are even more healthier for you. But so green, does it always mean that we have done a good job? No, it really depends how you look at your survey results or your design results. So let's take a look at how we can use the tools properly and in a design process, a step-by-step process with using Ekahau Pro. I'm happy that you changed the name from survey, because some people say, I can only use Ekahau for my surveys and my design, but of course we can use it during the entire life cycle of a network, because also for troubleshooting with the capture capabilities of your sidekick.
That's absolutely right. I mean, that's a gret point. Is that I think sometimes I catch myself still saying ESS. And so, but Ekahau Pro for sure, right? I mean, it's you're now, it's part of that design, like you say. It's the design, analyze, optimize, and troubleshoot. You've got that whole gambit of tools now, right? So that's having that in your toolbox.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so it all comes to that process, that structured approach. And the first thing that you need to do, and most people don't spend, in my opinion, too much time on this, is gathering, investigate and gathering requirements for your network designs. And it all starts with looking at the company's business. If you're designing for healthcare or for education or for manufacturing, there are different goals. So what you need to find out what's the company's business, what they are trying to solve. Maybe you already have existing issues that want to solve in redesigning the networks. And the first step, the second step actually is to collect floor plans. And of course, if we can have several formats being imported by Ekahau, so broad, wide support of graphical images that can be imported. And of course, the CAD drawing can make life very easy for you with the wall outline wizard, not to confuse by the workstation on wheels in the healthcare. But the wall outline wizard can really help you to draw in the walls automatically, and you can change the attenuation levels later on. And in version 10.01, we have some great new features with maps. For instance, the map cropping. That is the one that I was looking for quite some time. In the old days, we used, of course, something like Photoshop to remove the unwanted areas. And now we can do that within Ekahau. That's really nice. And also the rotation. I have included the slide later on, but that really helps you to optimize your map. And of course, the new support for the AutoCAD, that's also in version 10.01. What you need to find out also is, of course, building information. So construction materials, etc., ceiling heights, and all that information, of course, we use later on in the process in Ekahau. And also that has been improved in the radio edit dialog. You can, for instance, now make selections where the AP is mounted. So if you have restrictions, for instance, it's not possible to mount your APs on the ceiling. Now in the design, you can do also wall mounting and floor mounting. So that really is a good new feature in 10.01. The client type and specifications. And in the old days when I started with Wi-Fi, it was quite easy because yeah, most people had the same device, same laptop with an Intel adapter, same specifications. But yeah, bring your own device makes that, of course, more complicated. Some people call it even bring your own disaster. But yeah, that makes it hard because you have to design for, of course, the most business critical device. And I gave some examples on the slide. Of course, for a warehouse, that's probably the barcode scanner. And for a store, that's probably their mobile POS device in the store. So you have to find out specifications for that particular device. And I give you some hints and tips later on. Of course, the capacity, and in my opinion, that's far out the most complex one because it's very hard to predict. The life cycle of devices is shorter nowadays. Newer devices with newer capabilities, for instance, more spatial streams, they consume less airtime. So that means that also affects your capacity calculation. All this information, of course, we can configure in Ekahau, so that is really useful. Don't forget about exclusion areas, because sometimes in specific areas we don't need or don't want Wi-Fi. So you can also include that in your design. And the applications, find out what applications are critical for the customer. And yeah, if you go to an application administrator, they sometimes, or most of the time, cannot tell you what the requirements are for the network. So you have to find out yourself, which can be quite challenging. And last but not least, yeah, the budget. What products will you be using? What vendor will be deployed? And yeah, also in the latest version, of course, and Ekahau keeps doing that, of course, adding new support for new APs, new models, especially with the new AX. Of course, there are a lot of new models available in the software for you. So yeah, the pre-installation design, the predictive design can help you. All the things that we have gathered that I've showed you in the previous slide can be used in Ekahau. So you can specify your clients for the capacity. You can specify the areas that for the requirements areas. So all that can be done in your predictive design. I keep stressing out to my customers, of course, yeah, it's predictive. So I also validate my predictive designs on site if possible. Sometimes I do some sample measurements, depending on if it's a new building, and I can validate my wall measurements on site. And I go back to the drawing table and modify my predictive design if necessary. Good news, AP on a stick is now also available on the iPad. So we can do a freeze from the iPad. So if you have a Connect license, you can also use that for your AP on a stick, which is very good. And don't forget about your distribution system, because yeah, of course, Wi-Fi is an extension on your wired network. And especially with, for instance, AEX, your throughput, your data rates will go up. So also the load on your wired infrastructure will, yeah, it needs to be investigated. So make sure that you take that into account. And besides bandwidth, of course, you need to look at power, the power over Ethernet requirements. And of course, you need to document everything. Yeah. So if we go to Ekahau, how we do that, we first load the map, of course. We scale the map. We are rotating the map if necessary. We can do that now in version 10.01, as we have seen. Here you see it, actually. So you load the plan, and now you have the ability to crop and rotate the map. So here on the bottom of the slide, you can see actually the icon where to do this. Alignment points. So in a multi-story building, of course, we set the alignment points so the floors are actually aligned above each other. So you can do a three-dimensional planning and see actually how the signal propagates through your building. So that's also very, very nice. The coverage areas. Per coverage area, you can specify the requirements. So that's also good because, yeah, it could be that in parts of your floor you have different requirements compared to the others. So that is really useful. And you start drawing the walls or use the outline wizard from AutoCAD that can help you drawing the walls. Defining the attenuation areas can help you to make it more, your predictive more reliable instead of drawing only the walls. And then you can start placing the APs. Now we actually have three options for this. We can do that still manually. We can do the coverage planning. So we can actually see live how the AP will behave, how the signal will propagate through the building when using this. Or finally, of course, the auto planner. Yeah, so we have three options for this. And you can use the template reporting, and we have some great examples and report templates for you available by Nick Turner. He made that available for you, so you can find a lot of examples that you can use in your own reporting. This saves a lot of time, because in the old days we were all CCPs, certified copy and paste engineers, and we copied our our pictures in the Word document. It was very time consuming.
Very time consuming.
Oh, that was sometimes, needed a lot of days to create your reports. That is really a time saver. Yeah. So here's the example where you can set up your requirements that we just described. As you can see now in the new version 10.01, we can also include secondary signal strength. So I'll come back to that also later, but you here already see that that's part of the requirements as well. And we have also a visualization now available. So that is really helpful that you can do that right away and view your secondary signal strength. In the older versions, it was under the options. It was a little bit hidden. So some people didn't find it or didn't use it. So it's very convenient that you have it now right away available in the drop-down. This is the feature I was talking about earlier, the editing of the access points. And as you can see, we have now the ability to do the ceiling, wall, and floor mounting. And you have even the ability, I gave you in this example, you see a Cisco AX AP, that you have the ability even to unlink the antennas and change that per antenna if you use micro cell in your AP. So really, really useful.
And that's, Frank, that's a really important thing, especially in the design, right? Is understanding how your antenna is going to behave, right? Because I think a lot of engineers, and even in the early days when I was doing this, before we had visualization tools that were as good as this, is that we doing this helps us because that pendulum, that green pendulum, moves, right? And you can point it in the direction that you need, right? And so if you're on a ceiling, that antenna is there on the ceiling, but then use that pendulum to kind of change the angle, then at least that way now it gives you a better visualization of, okay, that's how the antenna should be. That's how it is. Because when we generate this stuff later, then we're like, okay, that's how we want it to be. So we're adding some more details into the reporting mechanism, right, that we didn't have before. Especially the walls. I mean, a lot of times we're sitting there trying to figure out, oh, was it a wall AP? How's it placed, right? And so having the ceiling, wall, and the floor options, this is probably one of my top 10 features of 10, and because I like this feature is so handy, right? It is super handy.
Definitely, yeah. And yeah, as I mentioned, from also look beyond the wireless. So it depends what solution is the customer actually deploying. Is it the cloud solution or is it an on-premises, the functionality in the AP itself? So that also affects, of course, how much bandwidth is required in the upstream to your distribution system. So all this needs to taken into account. Of course, people always blame the network. You have to deal with that. But at least make sure that your Wi-Fi design is good, and that most of the time you have to prove that it's not the network, but the foundation for your network is, of course, that design. If your design is not good, of course, you start troubleshooting, and at the end you find out, okay, it all leads back to a poor design. Oh, sorry. Also, of course, the relationship between the AP and the client, but also between APs. That's very important to take into account, especially when we've seen that in so many papers and blogs that, we want to avoid hallway deployments. APs can hear each other very well. So a controller might bring down the power, and at the end the result is that in the rooms we don't have adequate coverage. But of course, if you know this behavior, you can tweak and tune your controller, but be aware of all these relationships, especially for the client. So as mentioned earlier, look at that most important client, look in the data sheets, and sometimes they're quite limited, but sometimes they're more detailed. No worries, you can find out the capabilities of your client most of the time yourself. Mike Albano did a really good job. He made a list of all popular clients, and of course we can see what channels are available with client and supported, how many spatial streams, what protocols. And don't worry if your device is not on the list. Use your sidekick, capture your association request from the client, and you can find out the capabilities of your client. And then,
Yeah,
of course,
this is really important, especially in the design, is to figure out always, you know, you know, Keith talks about this quite a bit, is, you know, understanding those requirements, right? Is to figure out what devices are you going to be supporting, right? And if you have to, like you say, you got to go into a warehouse,
yeah,
and you have to support the older guns, maybe the old Motorola 9090s, right? Well, you got to figure out, hey, you know what? A lot of those don't support a lot of the channels out of the box, and sometimes you have to go and grab one and then make sure those channels are configured, and then also make sure that, okay, well, if you got 500 guns, scanning guns to deal with, are they all managed, through a central console, or are they individually just, standalones, right? So you have to think about is going into those devices and making sure that their profiles are set correctly, because a lot of times you'll find that you have devices that may not be on the right channels on 5 gigahertz. So you're maybe end up forced to go to 2.4, right?
Yeah.
So devices matter, right? And like I say, Mike Albano, a really nice, great guy. He's did a lot of back end work to get this going, and it's a really useful tool to find out if devices are supported, not supported. And he also actually, does the contribute as well, right? So if you've got a new device that you want to test it, add it in, right? And so this all helps kind of out the community side, right? And this helps you in your planning, right? So when you put this into Ekahau Pro, you will know that, okay, guess what? I've got to take out channels, maybe Uni 3. I got to take out Uni 3 out of that, or maybe just a couple of channels out in my deployment. And you can do that through the planner, right? So, and those are really key things, because they might get you in the butt later, right? You get to deployment all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Oh, well, hey, it's not working, but you designed it, right?
Correct.
Then you're troubleshooting.
Yeah. So a very important step. Sometimes your vendor, in this case, you see an example for the deployment guide for Cisco for Apple devices. Yeah, actually, the information is right available for you, so that makes it very easy. I put that one line bold, as measured by the iOS client, often forgot by people. You can set in Ekahau the device profile, and you can create an offset or a deviation of your device. In this case, in this example, this device is 4 dB weaker compared to your measuring device, for instance, the Sidekick. And please, don't forget to configure this as a profile, and you can also take that into account when you make your visualizations. To find out, by the way, that signal strength can be in some supplicant, it's very easy. You see in this example, macOS, you can actually display your signal measured from the client perspective in dBms or a percentage. So, and when you hold down your option key on the Mac, you have quite some details about your signals, your signal to noise ratio, your MCS rate, etc. In Windows, for instance, it's sometimes a lot harder to find because it's expressed not in a dBm but in a percentage. So in order to calculate the dBms, you need to do some calculations. In the nutshell, you see here the example how to calculate this. So in this case, 68% is the same as minus 66 dBm. So in this supplicant, it's somewhat harder to find. You see an example on AnyConnect supplicant mobility client, and here again you see then it's very easy to see minus 50 dBm. So you have right away your signal. And that information, of course, you can compare it with your Sidekick, and in your your profile, your device profile, you can enter that delta. However, keep in mind that even if you picked one of your client, there could be a deviation between the clients. So it's still a sample, but at least you take that into account. So I'm sometimes a little bit pragmatic. It's better to do it like this than don't do it at all. What we also mentioned that nowadays secondary and tertiary signals are available from the drop-down box right away. In the older version, we need to go to options, as I mentioned, and from there we could see actually the secondary and tertiary signal. Yeah, what about that secondary coverage, secondary AP? And I've seen this in one of buildings. It's amazing.
Well, you know what? I this one here, I'd really would love to talk to the designer of this one, and now you know what? There could be valid. It could be one's on 2.4 and the other one's on 5, but I don't know why you would do that. But who knows? This is an interesting one. I'd really like to know what was behind this one. But yeah, you might not want to put them two together if they're broadcasting because it's just a little bit too much noise.
Yeah,
a little bit too much RF noise there for sure.
So no, this is not secondary, of course, what you normally deploy. And you see here the results. So we have put a visualization on secondary, and we also included the device profile. So you can see that there's a huge difference. So we see actually the visualization from the client perspective. And as I showed you on the one of the first slides, we have to design for that client. So be aware of this. Tertiary, can be used, for instance, mostly used for location tracking for RTLS. In that case, we need a third AP to be detecting the client. In my opinion, I've seen, I do a lot of audits for customers, and what they ask me is my network location ready. So I check actually if you need the requirements for doing location with Wi-Fi. But it's very hard to accomplish this. However, nowadays with high density networks, we have more IPs, so clients will be detected by at least 3 or 4 IPs. But the pitfall is of course the co-channel interference, because if you add more IPs to meet the requirements, you introduce also an excessive number of level of co-channel interference. So it's hard to achieve that. And also, if you have an environment where you have high ceilings, and I put a graph on the right-hand side, if your IP is on a higher position, the signal can be, the signal strength will not be changing a lot. So if you're 10 meters away from the AP and you walk 10 meters to the other side, your signal hardly changes if your AP is on that height. So then you better look for alternative technologies like angle of arrival or BLE, etc. But it's possible to validate and to design for tertiary coverage in Ekahau. The AP position in the pre-deployment survey. So if you want to validate your design, you put your AP on a stick, and you put him behind the wall. The common mistake is that people measure directly behind the wall. Be aware of the free path loss. The first meter we already lose 40, and depending on the frequency, we can lose up to 40, 50 dB of signal. So that can be misleading. Can we do that in an empty building? Yes, we can do that. If we only want to validate our design for the attenuation levels of the walls that we have drawn in the design. But of course, when you want to do a post-deployment, and if you want to design, validate that, of course, we need to have people, we need to have furniture, everything affects the RF environment. So, but there are, of course, situations when people want to have the network up and running before people get in, such as in a warehouse. Otherwise, they cannot scan the goods, the materials. So in that case, yeah, you have to carefully plan and design your network and to make sure, yeah, do your best to achieve the best result as possible. And don't forget to you configure AP. I see people when they do that, they validate the design and they keep their AP on the same setting. So power level, they don't change it. They leave the data rates, all the basic data rates enabled. That's it needs to, of course, match what you have designed. So if on this position your AP is on 25 milliwatt, put your AP on 25 milliwatt, specify the data rates that you designed for. So make sure that it matches your design. For validating, of course, that's not necessary. If you want to validate what the attenuation of your wall is, you simply compare values. But if you want to validate your design, then your AP needs to be configured as it is in your design. For post-installation, so when the network is up and running, we still do a post-deployment survey, of course, that can be passive, active, and spectrum. As you have, of course, the sidekick. We can do that in one, at the same time. In the old days when we started with the surveys, we have to do that several times and merge all the data together. And that's a long time ago. Now we have the sidekick and we can do that at the same time. Active, be aware of the pitfall that you use your internal adapter for doing the active. So it really depends on the capabilities of your client. So don't jump into conclusions when you look at the results of your active survey. Be aware of that. What a lot of people forget is to go back to the controllers, their RRM, ARM, or ACSP algorithms, and tune their controllers. Because even if you've done your designs, you validated your design, sometimes you need to do some tweaking and tuning in your controllers that, for instance, your AP does not go below a specific power level or not go above you. So you give actually your controller still the ability to do auto RF, but within a specific limit. And based on the outcome of your survey, you need to configure your controller accordingly. This is the time, of course, to do also your failover testing, etc. So test with your devices, etc. And in the Autopilot, in the latest version 10.01, we have that Autopilot feature, which is a great new feature. Because I see, in the old days, I see people running in the building and they only use one adapter. And they don't realize that if you only do it with one adapter, it takes about 8 seconds to scan all the channels. So you have to walk very slowly. So yeah, if you use more adapters, that time will go down, of course. But even with 3 adapters, it needs more than 1.5 seconds to scan all the channels. The sidekick, samples 30 times per second. So yeah, you don't beat the sidekick. You cannot run harder than the sidekick can measure. So that is really nice. And with the Autopilot, and that is really a great new feature, we don't have to click on the maps anymore. We simply set 2 anchor points, and then we use the intelligence of our smart devices, our iPhone or iPad with the camera, and we use that for actually locating us on the map. So it helps you to plot actually the survey route automatically. That is really nice because if you have to click on the map manually, especially when you want to do a continuous survey. You need to open doors, etc. So that can actually affect your the quality of your survey, the samples you make. So this is really a nice feature that we have available since 10.01 if you have a Connect license.
For sure. I think for some of the audience members there, it we'll just to clarify that our typo in the slide, it is 10.1.0. So yeah, that's okay. I've done it a couple of times myself, but it is 10.1, folks.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's all right. We got it. We're good. But yeah, no, this is an amazing piece because this really helps on those the sampling, right? Because it's important to when you're doing that post validation, is to figure out, hey, are we getting it right? Right? Did we get it right? And did the design work as intended? Right? And so this is really going to fine tune as to, hey, where you need to do that work on the controller, because
Yeah.
the more data points that you have, and the more data that we can understand how it's performing. And then this is where I find, reducing the amount of times I have to click on it, where I'm actually now being able to click, like, clickless almost, right? Is has getting in. I think this thinking about all the surveys I've done over the
Mm.
years, doing it the traditional way,
Yeah.
and now using it in this mode, I'm like, wow, I want to go back and do that now.
Yeah.
Not really, but I want to see how much faster it would be. And hey, did I miss out any data? Right. So this is a cool thing.
Yeah. So I made a little video to show you how it works. So you can open from your iPad or your iPhone. You can open a project from the cloud or create it locally. You load from your library locally. You load your floor plan. You can even scale it, rename it from there, so you don't have to do that on your laptop. You can do it right away on your iPad, and then you can start walking. You see on the right-hand side the icon for this autopilot. So the first one is, of course, the stop and go, and then the continuous. And the third one is that autopilot. So and then you start walking. And actually, my son, he's 12, he did it. So he walked in the living room, and it's very easy because we tested it right away. But I can even send my son to do a survey now. So I don't have to send an expensive engineer on site. As long as you instruct the surveyor to how to do this, it's very easy, and it can save you a lot of time. And yeah, you have more accurate samples, of course. So really, really a cool feature. Validate also from the station physical position. So for the post installation, this was far out my most nicest project that I've done for outdoor. And what we did inside the helicopter, we validated, so both from the client position as well as from outside, inside out, and from the controller. So I checked that. I also do this for warehouses. So in this case, the supplicant, it was a Motorola scanner. As you can see, it has quite a lot of details about SNR, signal, noise, etc., the transmitted packet. So really, really useful to validate your design from the client perspective. And if you have done a good job, you will see the result on your client. Don't forget about the visualization option you have, the visualization height, a very nice feature, because in a warehouse, APs are probably at a high height. So in this example, the APs were at 8 meters. And you can actually simulate that in your predictive design. So you can actually show Ekahau how does the world look like from an 8-meter standpoint or a 6 meter on the right hand side. You can see the difference. On the right hand side, you're closer to the AP, so it depends where the scanners are used in that warehouse. So be aware of that. And the controller, of course, uses that 80 meter to calculate power levels, etc. So because that's where the AP is. I remember that I did an audit for a customer, and they had issues in a warehouse on the ground level. But yeah, the issue was actually the controller, because they didn't change the RRM algorithm, and to make sure that we have enough adequate coverage on ground level. And that is where the clients were being used, of course. They scan on that level. But it depends case by case. In some warehouses, of course, we scan on a higher height.
So, yeah, no, this is good, because there are some that are like, in 30 feet high, ceilings, and some of them have where the APs are mounted, and then sometimes you got some mezzanine that's actually running across down that aisle in some cases, and that's at 20 feet high, right? And so this is a great way to understand those visualization heights, right? So if you've got
Yeah.
the AP planted in one area and you've got a mezzanine deck that's sticking out on like from a pic tower or something, right? You can then now show that visualization and snapshot that, okay, this is an understanding of how the client's being seen when I'm here, right?
Yeah.
And these are really important key things is to understand how the visualization heights work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good to always. I think a lot of people, a lot of engineers understand, or say a lot of folks that are out there designing sometimes overlook I don't need to worry about the AP height to get it right. Well, actually, no, you do, right?
Yeah.
Because then otherwise it affects your design, right?
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
then and make sure you got your ceiling heights, your building plan done accordingly.
Yeah. You have validation for third coverage. We've seen that it can be done in Ekahau itself, of course, when you do a post-deployment survey. Or in some network management systems, you will also have the ability to actually see the deviation. And in this example, you see some clients on the desk, and you ask actually your network management system, where do you think this client is located? And you can see on the map actually the deviation between the real location and the location where the management systems think the clients are located. And based on that outcome, together with your Ekahau Sidekick results, you can actually see, hey, am I location ready? Because it really depends on your use case. If you only want to track if somebody's in the office for presence, then an accuracy of, let's say, 10 meters is good enough. But if you want to find a specific item in your building, then maybe you need an accuracy of 1 meter. So it really depends on your use case where you want to use Wi-Fi tracking RTLS for. But you have the tools. You have Ekahau and you have your vendor tools to do this. Yeah, I want to stress out one other time, the usage of the Sidekick, of course. Because in the old days we use all these adapters, you ran out of battery quite quickly. The Sidekick, of course, has its own battery, so that is very big advantage, of course. With Ekahau Connect license, you have the ability to use your iPad, and that makes life very easy. I want to give you a sneak preview of another integration, and we have an upcoming webinar with Jim Florid from Cisco.
Yes, and we don't want to give too much away in this sneak preview.
No, so
we'll go to the next one. We'll skip the other two, but I think there's definitely what we want to do here is kind of set the intention is that now before we get into it is we do have a kind of a plug is we do have an upcoming webinar coming up on Wednesday the 11th, and I hope you guys can all join us here. We're going to be talking about Cisco DNA integration with Ekahau, right? And so what we're doing there is we're able to kind of like we did with our old school friends with Prime Infrastructure. We're now going to be able to do that with Cisco DNA, but it's going to be better, and it's going to be a project file integration, and it's a little bit different from what you'd be used to in the old days of our NMS products. So that's just something to definitely stay tuned for sure.
Yeah. So then I will skip these slides and I'll leave it to Jim.
Yes, let's go on to keep going. Keep going. Yeah. So this is that's a good one. So the key takeaways. Yes.
Exactly. So in summary, spend enough time to gather the Wi-Fi network requirements together with your customer, and also it's educating your customer, because they sometimes ask me, why do you ask these difficult questions? I simply want a Wi-Fi network, but it's so important. An enterprise network or a warehouse or an education environment, it's not simply mounting some APs and hope for the best. As I mentioned earlier, no, we need to do a proper design, because at the end, you want to be proactively managing your network and not reactively only solving issues. Don't forget the station, at the end, the client, capacity requirements, etc. And of course, we have these great tools from Ekahau, but use them with knowledge, because even things can go wrong. So I strongly recommend that you take off the one of the Ekahau classes. I will show them in an upcoming slide, what we have available for training. Validate your design, of course, and tune when needed. And don't tweak each parameter in your environment, because the defaults are chosen by the vendor for a reason. So I've seen people that change, for instance, beacon intervals, and they have all kinds of problems. So be aware of what the impact is.
Yeah, one change could overtly affect about 1 million other devices, right? Yeah, and definitely been seen that before. Yeah, definitely very important. That one to do is validate and do design, but don't overdo it. Follow the design guide that you can, and make sure you read those release notes of your vendor of choice, right? So Cisco, Mist, and make sure you check into those ones. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, and don't forget second and third coverage and the relationship between the device that you are using and the integration options that you might have available for your vendor. In this example, DNA Center from Cisco. Mm-hmm. So for follow-up, as I mentioned, training is very important. I'm an instructor, so I know the importance. And even people that are joining the 5-day course, on day one, we do a lot of fundamentals. And even people that are doing Wi-Fi for years, they say, oh, I never knew this. Or so training is very important. And you have some excellent training options at Ekahau. We have the design class, the advanced class, the troubleshooting class. And there's a lot of material, of course, available online. So I really like that you have so much content available for us as an end user and engineer. So that's really great. And of course, as a Cisco instructor, I also want to stress out the new design course for Cisco that will be available next year. And of course, vendor neutral. It was for me actually an eye-opener. I took all these CWMP classes, vendor neutral classes. So it's highly recommended, in addition to the Ekahau training, that you take these classes also.
Yeah, this is really important. I think you hit this right on the nail in the head, because it's important to understand that we could go through all the design and do this, and we've got software that helps you do the design in a way, but it's also important to have that knowledge of how to do it right? Because understanding the fundamentals is key. And even on our Ekahau ECSE design course, we do touch on the fundamentals of the CWNA course at the beginning of the first day, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that the student is understanding that this is how you deal with radio power, right? This is how you deal with understanding what the effects are, the cause and effects of understanding putting that radio power in there and affecting your design. Because the default is, oh, we'll put it up at a high power. That's great, but that's not what reality is, right? No. And you and I know that from a Cisco design, like we don't do that, because the APs are going to back off anyways on a controller, right? And then when we look at the CWN P side, is that we understand that from a different point of view, is understanding how the clients are behaving, right? We understand the technical why, right? That those things are happening and the theories behind it, right? So the CWNP courses, the Cisco or whatever vendor you're going to use, right? Like, so with those vendor trainings, you're going to understand those key learning pieces that you're going to need in order to make your design successful, right? Absolutely. So so I mean, our design is in our training courses for sure. We teach a lot of that, but it is also important that is to also understand the wireless devices that you're like APs that you're going to use. If you got a good familiarity and handle on that and know how they behave in a way, then this is definitely stressed to do that. It'll make your design so much more successful, right? Absolutely. So there's kind of a two hand in hand piece there.
Yeah, and I work also closely together with the distributor of Ekahau here in the Netherlands. And when they sell actually your products, we also convince the customer, yeah, take a one-day workshop, and we work together to deliver that workshop to help the customer to better understand the features, and then they can go straight away and use your products. So yeah, training is very, very important.
It is, yeah. Having that knowledge in there is key. So we've got so I mean, Frank, this is amazing. And just before we get to the Q&A, I mean the content was amazing. I really liked how you kind of went through that design process and to kind of articulate, you know, you got to get those definite key requirements, right? Is understanding what are you going to design that network for, right? So we touched on a lot of that. We touched on what the tools that we're going to use today to figure out how to make that design work well, and what are the pitfalls to kind of avoid some things, right, that you wouldn't want to avoid. But no, this was amazing. On the questions and Q&A, what I forgot to mention at the beginning, I need to make sure I get a shout out to my other co-host here, Abhishek, who's out there, and he's been handling the Q&A side on the back end. And I didn't see him join until right after I did the intro. So well done, Abhishek. And it looks like we've got, you've answered quite a few questions in the hopper there, which is amazing. Thank you very much. And it looks like we probably have a couple of good ones maybe actually that we might want to actually throw up here as well. And just before we get to that, those questions there, but if you are interested in the people that the folks that are staying on the line here, if you are interested in seeing about, you know, obtaining, you know, getting more information about Ekahau itself, you go to ekahau.com, how to buy, or you need to get that support contract renewal because you forgot to renew your contract this year. Let's get that going. And if you want to just look at some training, we've got that as well on the screen here. Is ekahau.com/training. So and as always, we do demos. So if you're looking for a demo, or always stay tuned to our webinars, and we'll do that. So without further ado, let's get into some of the Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up there.
Okay.
All right. I think what I'll do is I will go ahead and stop the recording, but I'll just say is thank you very much, and we'll continue on here and answer on some questions. But I'll stop the recording, but to say thank you very much. And Frank, it was definitely a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we have to figure out how to get that done, and we stop.